Are you ready to unlock your full potential and maximize your productivity? Look no further than Productivity Smarts, the ultimate audio podcast hosted by renowned productivity expert Gerald J. Leonard. In every episode, Gerald shares captivating stories, invaluable tips, and cutting-edge strategies that will transform the way you approach productivity. Whether you're looking to reduce stress, overcome overwhelm, or simply get more done in less time, Productivity Smarts has got you covered. But that's not all. You'll also gain inspiration from real-life success stories of individuals who have achieved greatness through productivity. Plus, you'll learn the latest tools, techniques, and habits that will help you achieve a new level of happiness and fulfillment in your personal and professional life. So why wait? Join us every week as we delve into the exciting world of productivity and help you unleash your full potential. Get ready to take your productivity to the next level with Productivity Smarts. As a productivity expert and host of the Productivity Smarts podcast, Gerald J. Leonard has been a proud supporter of Kiva since 2011. Kiva is a non-profit organization that helps entrepreneurs in third world countries access the capital they need to start or grow their businesses. By making a small loan through Kiva, you can help these entrepreneurs achieve their dreams, support their families, and contribute to their local economies. And with a repayment rate of over 96%, your loan can be re-lent to another entrepreneur once it's repaid, creating a ripple effect of positive change. So if you're looking for a meaningful way to make a difference in the world, consider making a loan through Kiva. With loans as small as $25, anyone can be a micro-lender and help change lives. Visit kiva.org to learn more and start lending today.
Today, I'm speaking to Deborah Mallow. She is your audience's ray and sunshine and the creator of The Daily Decision. She focuses on self-improvement essentials to reinforce positive habits. She's also the author of 6 Steps to Fewer Days That Suck. I love that title of your book. How are you, Deborah?
I'm so good. I'm so glad to inspire your audience alongside of you, Gerald. This is a thrill, and productivity is my thing.
Excellent, excellent. I love the subtitle too. Ditch unhealthy habits, unzip a happier you. That's a great metaphor and a visual as well. So really, kudos to you. Well,
Thank you.
If you listen, I believe you've listened to a number of my other podcasts with the guests I've had on. And so I always ask 2 questions, because if you had the video, you could see behind me, I have all these musical instruments. And I actually just released an EP of 4 Beatles songs that I remade with my producer and so on. So I was really excited about that. So my first question is always, what is your favorite style or genre of music?
Yes. Well, I think it's because of what I grew up on. I do love rock. I really do. And I love the Beatles. And I also love country, because it's like a nice crossover between that and rock. And then I also adore Broadway musicals or musical theater music, because I grew up in Manhattan. So I love to go to Broadway and see shows, especially musicals.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, there's musicals on Broadway. It's a once in a lifetime thing. If you don't live there where you can see them all the time, but if you can make it there, I would say definitely go see a Broadway musical. It is definitely worth it. Even if you're in Chicago, go see a Broadway musical. It's still definitely worth it. So let me ask you this other question here. Can you share a piece of music that has inspired you or resonates deeply with you?
Yeah, actually, there's 2 that I just love. There are 3, but I've sort of narrowed it to 2. The Rachel Platten, the fight song. Okay. I just love it. You know it, right?
Yes.
Because especially if you read about why she wrote those lyrics, because she was having trouble in the music industry, having equality and a whole lot of other things. And she was about to give up. So glad she didn't.
Yeah.
And that was her anthem that she stuck to it, because it's sad. She went into a depression. Yeah. And then I love the Leanne Womack song, I Will Dance, because when you listen to those lyrics, it's all about perseverance and being front and center in your life. Climb those mountains, keep going, don't sit on the sidelines. I mean, I don't say it as poetically as it's sung, but it absolutely resonates so deeply. And that's why I do what I do. It's
Yeah.
all about getting unstuck and believing in yourself and fighting the fight.
Yeah, but sometimes it's interesting because both of those songs, it sounds like they came out of situations where they were discontent or it brought some form of angst into their life. And because of that, it forced them to share their convictions or to say, stand up and dance or stand up and fight or the fight song and so on. It forced them to stand up. And sometimes life kind of throws some things at you. It's kind of like the commercial, life comes at you fast. And it makes you dig inside yourself to identify what are the things that will allow me to become successful through this challenge, which actually leads me into my next question, which is, obviously you've written an amazing book. I've had a chance to go through it. There's a lot of great insight and research and so on. What is it about your life and your career that's helped you to become successful throughout your career?
It's all about never giving up and perseverance and this deep, deep self-pride. I don't want to let anyone get in my way. And as far as achieving my personal best, I don't compete with other people. It's all about striving for my personal best because it's all about being proud of what I do. But the caveat is it got me in, I don't want to say trouble. I've never been in real trouble, but it actually got me to be exhausted, to be burnt out, to be negative even, which is so really not like me, to feel just overwhelmed because I was pushing myself too hard and not indulging in self-care, in self-love, in doing things to make me feel good. Because we could all, it all has to do with productivity, right?
Right.
I was really productive, but at what cost?
Right. Exactly. That was my story, right? And if you listen to my first podcast on this series, Productivity Smarts, I share the story of how, I was diagnosed with vertigo. I had to be taken by ambulance to the hospital, and it left me with this vestibular constraint. And I had a lot of work to do to get back on my feet. And that's where I started learning these principles that I now call Productivity Smarts. And it is about how do you become extremely productive without burning out? And that's what, I'm passionate about teaching other executives and leaders. And especially as I've learned the secrets of what's allowed me to become even more productive and do far less in my life than I ever have done before. So as I'm looking through your book and the information that you sent me, tell me your story. How did you get to that point? Like, what was it that led you to that point of getting burnt out? And then what allowed you to overcome it?
So I had a couple of chapters in my life. At first, I was a designer. I studied art, textile design, and illustration in college. And I went on to work in the field. And then on top of it, my husband and I started my business where I licensed my designs. He was the business person. I pushed myself to exhaustion there. This was a cycle.
Right.
Then a couple decades, well, not couple, but like 20 years later, I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work. I'm going to be a sales rep. And I talked my way into a job, a good job as a sales rep. And I decided, okay, I'm going to be number one. I'm going to be the best. And I did that again. It's a cycle. Push, push, push. Achieved it, but at what expense? So it was during that time where I was working at the time, Johnson & Johnson, and I was a number one sales rep in one of the franchises, dermatology. I sold a biotech drug. Here, an artist turns out to be biotech sales rep. Interesting, and it was fascinating, actually. And I was a ray of sunshine. I didn't really have to sell anything. I just had to talk about the benefits within, what the guidelines. Right. But my doctors really enjoyed me and I enjoyed them, but I was pushing to get to number one, competing against myself. And all of a sudden, there I was, because I didn't want to drive. I could have driven to the offices. I took the subway, get there fast, efficient, right? And get more calls in during the day. But one day there I was standing on that New York City platform, and the tears started to come down my eyes. I was overwhelmed. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I was just feeling beside myself. I didn't know what to do. And somehow, divine intervention, a voice said to me, my inner voice said to me, my intuition, if you don't stop and you don't make a change, nothing's going to happen. And this is going to be your life. And you will die. You will stroke out. Because that's how I felt. I was really felt I was going to have a stroke. So I said, I'm going to do something. I don't care. I am determined to enjoy my life and not be on this hamster wheel.
Right.
So that's when I started to write my guidebook, because my book was never intended to be out in the world. It was intended to help me get through my struggles. So everybody struggles.
So you were basically journaling about what was going on and kind of working through and thinking through the process of how do I unpack, right? How do I unpack all of this that's going on to get to the root of what's really, that my body is basically telling me you're going down the wrong track.
Absolutely. 100% nail on the head. That was it. And as I started to do it, I started to write the commitment, my commitment. I would ask myself questions, exactly how the book's laid out. I would ask the questions. Then I would have different ways, and sometimes more than one different way, to get through it, to change my thought process, to change my thinking, to stop the circular thinking, to stop the negativity, to be positive, which is truly who I am. I'm really positive, but your brain can make you negative and everything. The thoughts in our head, I needed to reshape them. And that's what I did. And then I would put in action steps, things that I could do. I would read stories about different people that inspired me depending on that topic. Because as you know, it's double pages. It's not a chapter book. It's double pages to help. And then a line page at the end with a summation of the end of each step. So I made it really simple for myself. And in turn, it'll be simple for somebody else to do and to read through. Because even if we know what we should do, we don't always do it. We don't honor our dignity, value our self-worth, value ourselves. We need to value ourselves and treat ourselves with care and with love.
Right. So you're really talking about why you created the book. Like, what was your why, right? It was your why was the book came out of a need, right? Where you needed to work on yourself. You needed to work through things. You needed to think through things. And by writing them down and then kind of coming up with this framework that you came up with, it allowed you to process and think through, oh, here's how I got myself into this situation. Because I think, with life right now, there's a lot of negativity, right, in the world, not just in the US, but just in the world. And we have to process that. One, we have to really be the guardians of what we take in, right? Because the other thing I heard you say was, I had to start listening to great stories, or I listened to things that made me smile or laugh, and that brought joy to my heart. Because if we're constantly listening to negativity through the news and, gossip and just different challenges, then basically we're taking all of that in, and guess what? It stays in our bodies. And that's what happened, right? That's what happened to me. That's what happened to you. It stays in our bodies. It's processed in our cells. And unless we have a way of working with our bodies and getting it out, it will put us in a situation where it will, it's a dis-ease, which becomes a disease, which can become a stroke, a heart attack, all these different things, because we're not processing all of the things that are going on. And we need to be in that place where we process. And I think that's really, really important message to get out, especially now with all of the news that's out there. We have to constantly process all of this stuff and put ourselves in a place where we're hearing a lot more good news than we're hearing about bad news. right? And that's really important. Now, one of the things that you talk about in your book is why do we procrastinate, right?
Yes.
You talk about procrastination. So let me ask you this. Why do we procrastinate? I know I do.
Well, you know what? I think so many things are human nature to it really, 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 it's just, but why we do it is because we're not clear many times on what we need to do. And once we get clear and we feel comfortable doing what we're doing, we're all in. But if we're not, so it's really important not to get overwhelmed, number one. So we have a project that can seem daunting. Take it, sit down for a few minutes and break it down into smaller tasks. As you know, smaller things to do. And then once you do that, because I find just in little things, I do this. You want a cup of tea. You want to go have dinner with someone. You want to do whatever you want to do. Reward yourself once you did it. So as you're doing it, you're looking forward to whatever your reward is. I mean, we're not going to make something grandiose, but we're going to do something we like to do.
Right.
So I find doing that, getting clear on what you have to do, breaking it down into smaller tasks, if you want to call it that, then rewarding yourself for it, because the biggest thing is accomplishment. Even washing dishes, whatever the accomplishment is, scrubbing your bathroom, whatever it might be, the little things, it brings that pride. It makes us feel good. And when we feel good about doing something, we're more apt to want to do it the next time. So that's how I work through my procrastination, because nobody can say they don't procrastinate. I mean, we all have things we would rather do. But it's so rewarding to finish a project. Think about, have that as your carrot, getting it done, and the pride you're going to feel. I'm all about, as I told you, I'm all about self-pride. I think that's important to stand, you put your best foot forward.
Exactly. You know, one of the things I like to do is when I break my tasks down, I keep a notebook with me that has written by hand my activities I need to work on. And when I finish getting something done, I take my pen out and I mark all over it and I make sure it's like, okay, that thing is done. And what that does with marking it out physically is that it releases dopamine in the brain.
Yes.
And you feel a sense of accomplishment. You feel like, okay, and especially, you know, again, if you're in the throes of trying to, you know, process, right? And your body is saying, hey, if you don't slow down, there's going to be problems. And sometimes we may be listening right now and our bodies are saying, if you don't slow down, there are going to be problems. Well, one way to deal with that is to figure out what it is that you have on your plate, break it down to some of the critical things that you need to do in small activities that you can do immediately, and do one or two of those. And then when you're done, scratch them off and step back and think, okay, I just got this done. Is there anything else that's critical that I have to get done today? And if the answer comes back no, then you can say, I can close my book and I can go chill, I can relax, because now I've given myself that ability to, one, reward myself for getting things done, and I'm balancing out what I have to do, and I'm focusing on the most important things. What happens for most people is that they just come up with a list of things and they're checking them off, and they're never stopping to go, let me reward myself. Like you're saying, let me reward myself. And the body can't, it's not an engine. And even with engines, if you push them too far, they go into the red, right? The car goes into the red and it will burn out. And you have to give it that break. So that's really important. Now, let me ask you this one. How can productivity make us shine and live happier? I think we just talked about it, but is there anything else that you want to talk about when it comes to accomplishing your goals and living happier when you're being productive?
And it's interesting because you said the release of dopamine. I mean, that's really in anything we do. When that happens, thoughts start percolating. It becomes much easier to push past our fears and all of that. So honestly, I think you covered it all, because that's really the key, to make ourselves feel good, to be
Yes.
proud of our accomplishments, and then to be able to say, okay, I'm able to do it. I can do it. And then the next time, not to procrastinate, to just sit right down and say, I'm going to get it done, because the reward, maybe it's just taking the afternoon off, whatever the reward might be, is something that we look forward to. That stimulates the brain's reward center, right? It makes us
Exactly.
feel good.
And that's really important in regards to self-care, self-worth, self-esteem, all those things when we're living, basically being in a place of our well-being and really just trying to take care of ourselves. And our bodies will thank us later as we're getting up, and now we're not as tense as we are. Our bodies are more engaged. We don't have that resistance from trying to get things done, because there's a part of us that feels like, okay, if you keep doing this, it's not going to work. And we end up fighting ourselves. Now, when it comes down to negativity bias, you talk about something that comes with, what does it have to do with the caveman? And so I'm interested in that.
Isn't that, doesn't that, I mean, that's all the things, I mean, why am I being negative? I mean, that's all part of the research that I did. And there's so much out there. It's actually fascinating, because back in the day, they had to watch their backs. I mean, animals and all the things that could attack them. There was a reason that our brains protect us from danger and fear and that whole negativity thing. But we don't have to worry about that now. But it's been ingrained from back then.
Yep.
So our brains tend to, as you know, remember the sting of the negative more than the joy of the positive. And the great thing is about being a human being, we can't control other people, so give that up.
Right.
But we can reshape our thoughts.
Yeah.
We're not going to stop a negative thought from creeping in, of course not, but being able to stop it and not engage in it and move past it, that's the thing that we can do. And we can control our actions too, and our emotions. That's difficult, but little steps at a time, we can make the change, but we have to choose to make the change and then follow through and reward ourselves, because that works.
Exactly. And I think too, we have to be aware and cautious of other people's negative biases.
Yes.
Because, it's kind of like being a defensive driver. When you're driving for yourself to kind of stay in your lane, but you also are driving for other people who may not be as experienced as you are or drive as well as you do. And so you're kind of driving for them. And it's the same way when it comes to this idea of negativity bias, that you may be excited and happy in life, and you go to a clerk or a post office worker.
As you did, yes.
Where, I went to go, renew my passport, and the young lady was not having a good day or a good period in her life. And she was, just trying to make it a little bit difficult. I walk in and she goes, it's like 4:00, and she goes, oh, it stops at 2:30. But there's no sign anywhere that says 2:30. So I'm like, okay, I have to come back tomorrow. Long story short, she was just not in a good place. And I just made a decision that, you know what, there's something in her life that's really causing her to be frustrated and angry, but it doesn't have to be my life. And I'm not going to take on her, that part of her. I'm feeling really good. And, thank goodness one of the other people that was working there came in and helped me out, and I got everything taken care of. But that happens so many times in life, where you can be in a good position, a good place mentally, in a good problem space, and yet people around you may not be, and you constantly have to guard that as well. Now, let me ask you about something else that you talk about in your book, and it's the idea of the imposter syndrome. And a lot of people talk about this. And so I would like to hear what your thoughts are around the imposter syndrome.
And that's why people talk about it, because everything I talk about in my book is it's just our human nature, our behaviors, just how we all are similar in that way. We struggle with the same things. It's just a matter of how we go about it in the most efficient, productive way. So we don't zap our energy, because that's what it's about. We're zapping our own energy. We're actually hurting ourselves. So with imposter syndrome, everybody feels, oh, I don't measure up. Oh, somebody is better. Somebody can do it better, or I'm faking it. They're going to find out that I'm faking it. But honestly, the thing is, everybody struggles with it. Once you realize that everybody's struggling with it, you got to just give it up. It's all part of that circular thinking and that negativity and everything. Yeah. We need to stop these thoughts before they start and give ourselves a chance and believe in ourselves. One of the biggest things to me is building confidence, building resilience, being able to believe that you can do it. And even if you have doubts, if you just have doubts and you stop yourself, you're never going to get past that. So the whole idea is just do it. Nike had it right. Just do it.
Exactly.
Think the swoosh and do it. Because what's the worst that can happen? We are blessed. And you read the book, so you know, I don't like the word failure because it has a negative connotation. Right. I renamed it. I call it education and growth, because there is no way you're not going to make a mistake. We don't get through life unscathed. We make mistakes. But what if mistakes are a gift in disguise? What if they're opportunities in disguise? Many times they are, because you're going to learn and grow from them. And then you'll hit the bump in the road, and then you'll actually get there. But you wouldn't have gotten there, most probably, unless you fell down and tried things different ways, trial and error. And so I always say, give yourself a chance. Imposter syndrome might be there, but we have to slowly work through it. And again, it's all about personal pride. Once you make these accomplishments, you start to have more faith in yourself. You start to believe that you can do it. And then you're more apt to go ahead and do it. So just make your mistakes and say they're opportunities. And say, so what? Really, what matters? How many things really matter in life? And I say that to myself all the time. Does it matter? Your loved ones matter. How you treat other people, that matters. Your health, that matters. But most little things, don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, it's really important. And, you know, that the whole idea of the imposter syndrome, it's really a growth mindset compared to a fixed mindset problem. And if you can just get to the point where you see a stumbling forward or a failure as an educational opportunity, and that you're in process of developing and learning, then you're no longer being an imposter. You're someone who's becoming, right? So I'm not an imposter because I don't think I'm a perfect, but I'm becoming a great writer. I'm becoming a great musician. I'm becoming a speaker. I'm becoming a business professional. Whatever you're focusing on where you may feel that imposter syndrome, if you put yourself in the mindset of that I am becoming, then the imposter syndrome actually goes away, because you're no longer being an imposter. You're just in process of becoming. Right?
Exactly. I guess that's why Michelle Obama named her book Becoming, because, you know, we're always becoming.
Exactly.
And it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, that's the one, I think that's so wonderful if you embrace the challenges. Because that leads to the reward. The reward is not necessarily making more money or that. The reward is that self-satisfaction, that saying that, being able to say, I was able to do this. I can do hard stuff. And honestly, to me, that's the most important thing, is that self-pride. And I say that a lot. And I think people really, when they actually feel that rush of adrenaline because you did it and you accomplished it. Boy, that's such a good feeling.
Exactly. Well, listen, as we get ready to finish our conversation here, and I'm having a great conversation and a great time with you as we talk about this stuff, because I can talk about this all day long.
Me too.
I have probably one or two other questions for you here, and that is about anger and training to think before reacting. I know you talk about it in a book, but what are some of the things that you've kind of uncovered in your research in regards to anger and training yourself to think before you react?
And that is a very difficult thing to do. I mean, what is it? They did a study, worldmetrics.org, that close to 17 million, 16.9 million people in the United States have faced anger. And a lot of it has to do with our emotions, our fear, things like that. We don't feel good enough about ourselves. So we just lash out. We're exhausted, whatever it might be. And that happened to me. And I mentioned it in my book, in my little anecdote. It doesn't take over the book because everything's little snippets. But I almost lost my job because I got annoyed at someone. And yes, people will always frustrate you. And people are not always going to rise up to your standards. But we need to be tolerant. We need to be kind, because getting angry has a toll on us. It's not healthy. And of course, it's not nice to be unkind and to be rude to somebody else, even if they're not doing what you want them to do. Like in the post office, you have to be kind. And it actually makes us feel better when we're able to push aside the negativity. Yeah. So what I do is I do many different things, but when I'm frustrated, I breathe. And yes, it's tried and true and it's trite, but it really works, because what you're doing is you're stopping yourself. You're reflecting on what's going to happen if I get angry. And am I going to feel good afterwards? No. And then I'm going to feel I have to apologize. And it's just a cycle. Right. And then the other thing is a lot of times I'll just have a visualization. We can do more things at once. Yes. Yes, I know to be productive, we shouldn't be multitasking. But as a person is frustrating me or whatever it might be, I picture myself in a calm place. We all have a calm place. A lot of people like a beach, and I do that. And that also with breathing helps to relax me. Yes. And then I take a step back and I say to myself in my mind, what am I going to accomplish by this? The only person I'm going to hurt is myself, honestly. The other person will walk away. Yeah, I'll be a little annoyed, but it's going to affect me and ruin the rest of my day. Right. So I stop myself from doing it, because that to me is the domino effect. All the things, I sort of picture that domino effect, all the things that are going to affect me after the fact. Right. And I just actually stop myself from going down the rabbit hole. Is it easy? No. But the great thing is, again, reshaping our thoughts, reshaping how we react. Human beings are capable of stopping themselves and actually making the change. And once you do it slowly but surely, it becomes a habit. It becomes, because the brains love patterns. Our brains love patterns. And once we create these patterns, more positive patterns, they're more apt to stick. And also, again, back to the reward thing and accomplishment, once we prove to ourselves that we actually can do it and stop the anger or stop the negativity, we feel so much better about ourselves that it does trigger that positive effect. And then you seek it. You want it to happen again.
Exactly. Well, Deborah, this has been an awesome conversation. Where can people learn more about you?
So you can go to my website, thedailydecisions.com. And if you go to the Daily Decisions with an S, thedailydecisions.com/inspire, you can join my Positive Energy Club. It's complimentary or free, if that's an easier word to understand. And you can download happiness worksheets, motivational worksheets, feel-good activity worksheets. They're complementary, and they're a perfect companion to 6 steps to fewer days that suck. And they also act as standalone. They'll actually give you some ideas, especially the feel-good activity, to stop yourself from getting angry, to stop being negative, things you can do to distract your mind.
Yes.
And also, you can find my book in bookstores and on Amazon.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Deborah, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Again, it's a great book.
Thank you.
6 Steps to Fewer Days That Suck. I like that title.
We all need a laugh, right?
Fewer days that suck, and able to have days that we can make things happen and, live within our joy and make the most of the life that we have here. So thank you so much for coming on to the Productivity Smarts podcast. And it's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Gerald. And I send sunshine to everybody out there, and everybody give themselves a big hug because you deserve it.
If you're enjoying the content and finding it valuable, we would appreciate it if you could take a moment and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us and helps us reach a wider audience. If you leave us a 5-star review, it would mean the world to us. Not only does it help us improve the podcast, but it also helps us attract more sponsors and grow our community. Thank you again for your support and for listening to the Productivity Smarts podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to Productivity Smarts, where we help you achieve your goals and live your best life. We hope you've gained valuable insights and actionable strategies to boost your productivity and increase your happiness and fulfillment. Remember to apply what you've learned and keep striving towards your goals. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more inspiring episodes and expert advice from our host, Gerald J. Leonard. Until next time, keep pushing forward and unleashing your productivity smarts.